everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Talking from the Cheap Seats with Rumble and the Gazoo. And what you're going to do when we bring our sports news to you. That's the one and only wrestling hit line you'll hear from me, because this is all about New England pro sports, and we'll throw some major sports lines in there. I am the BBB, not the Better Business Bureau. They know me as the Boston bad boy, Jason Rumble. And my brother from another mother, the co-host of Talking from the Cheap Seats, the Gazoo himself, Mr. Vinny Capelli. What's up, brother?
What's up, brother?
All right.
You ready? Hey, may the 4th be with you. Today is May 4th. May the 4th be with you.
I like that.
What a way to start the inaugural podcast right now. We got playoffs in the midst of playoffs. We just had an NFL draft. We got a minor league baseball team playing at Fenway Park. I mean, what about?
We'll get about talking about the Red Sox, as I can see you're not too fond of the Red Sox right now. But let's what do you want to get into first? We talk Bruins.
Why don't we go after the big fish right now? Let's talk about the Patriots. Let's talk about the draft in what many people are saying could be Bill Belichick's last year. It's possible. Well, let's get into that first. I think, look, we got the playoffs, and I know we can get into it, but I mean, the playoffs are the playoffs. And in baseball, it kind of just hit off, but I think the big fish right now is just what happened last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which was the NFL draft.
And I got a lot of bait here for that big fish known as the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
So I'll just say it like this. As a Patriots fan, last year was the first year that we could get used to the first year of not having Tom Brady.
Agreed.
And we've all accepted that fact.
Oh, we got no choice, but I agree. Yes. Last year was, we saw a future.
Yep.
We saw, what could be potentially something growing and be great. It wasn't the Cam Newton Superman show.
That it wasn't. But also in the same retrospect, you have Patriots, former Patriots, who are now part of the media, questioning the arm strength and some of the detail of one Mac Jones, mainly Mr. Teddy Bruschi, who basically has come out and said that he's a 5-year guy, that the Patriots will somewhere down the road in the next 3 to 5 years. He's not that future. Now, in my own words, we have not seen an Alabama quarterback in our lifetime realistically excel at the NFL level.
Agreed. You're right. I mean, we're in the midst of seeing, Tua Tagovailoa, but I'm not crazy about Tua. Prior to Tua, you got 3 of them in the league right now. You got Jalen Hurts, Tua, and Mac.
Yes.
All 3 starters for a team.
Yes.
Now, 2 of them are very similar, in Tua and Jalen were very similar in their style versus what Mac Jones was. Mac reminds me of the quintessential pocket passer.
Yep. He's the closest thing you're going to get. And I hate putting this out there, but he's the closest thing that gets you to a Tom Brady type of style.
Yeah. The drop back and pass, he's not going to scramble like Brady does.
Yep. Steps up into the pocket.
I agree.
Steps up into the pocket, reads his receivers. Now, a lot of people, it was so funny that would say, how can he remind you of Brady? And this is the thing that gets me. People only put what they've seen last in their brain. Tom Brady wasn't the quarterback he was for us the last 10 years that he was during them first 10 years out of his 20 years here. No, let's just face facts.
I agree.
He was a guy that realistically was a game manager. He was Phil Simms.
He was Alex Smith. He was Phil Simms.
Yep.
He was a game manager.
He's a game manager.
But he was good at it.
Yes.
The difference is 2000 to 2010. Oh, sorry. I'll go back. 2000 to 2007. I can't, you can't not talk about the Randy Moss here. But pre-injury, other than that last year, that's what he was. But he had the ultimate defense. That team was led by defense, and you had Corey Dillon to offset some running. You had Deion Branch, and you had a few guys here and there. Yeah, and he had, he had the luxury of playing with what's his face.
We had good tight ends over the years. We had Ben Coates.
That's what I was thinking of. Ben
Then you go into having the sports guy there. Wiggins was good for us.
Yeah,
Fourier was good for us.
Yep.
But I've always said this. I really don't care who agrees and who disagrees with me. The New England Patriots, the first 10 years of the Bill Belichick program, was the New York Giants blueprint.
Agreed.
Okay? The
Agreed.
New York Giants, if you think about it, their offense always had a couple of good receivers. Remember the slot receiver, Phil McConkey?
I do.
McConkey was like and Edelman and Welker were the new age McConkeys.
Agreed.
They had Bavaro as a tight end. Those were the Ben Coates, the Furiers, the Gronk Styles.
Right.
Of tight end. So just to refresh people's memories, Brady wasn't some barnstorming thrower. It wasn't until I believe the Patriots' buttons were pushed to pursue to go to that next avenue to compete with the Mannings, meaning Peyton Manning. And that's basically what happened. So
to kind of piggyback off of that and what we're talking about is I agree. Mac Jones is the closest thing in that aspect of the style of play that Brady has is what I think people need to understand. Neither you nor I think anybody in New England would ever compare any player in the NFL, never mind Mac Jones, to Tom Brady and try to say that they're similar. But what I'm getting at is, what I want to talk about first is we just had an NFL draft. And you're right. And I did hear Teddy Bruschi say that he's a 5-year player. Well, he's going to be a 5-year player if you don't give the kid the things that he needs. He has but one receiving weapon, and that is Hunter Henry. They made poor deal with Jonnu Smith, who did not pan out the way we expected. They're relying on an undrafted free agent that was signed in Jacoby Myers to be their number one receiver. You signed Nelson Aguilar, who his best years are behind him. Now you go into a draft. Yes, you signed Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker is not the Devontae Parker that they thought he was going to be in Miami, at least in my opinion. He is definitely regressed from the potential that he was supposed to have. And then what do you go and do? You draft in the first round what almost every NFL analyst in many people in the league said is a 2-round reach.
Yeah,
now, I get it. But you went and drafted an offensive lineman, which you didn't have to had you paid and re-signed Shaq Mason.
I'll get to those details in a second.
And then in the next round, you take another reach on another receiver. Now, granted,
he's the fastest receiver in the draft.
He's the fastest receiver. He ran a 4.2840.
Yeah.
A 4.28. He was the fastest guy at the combine.
But that's without pads. Let's just put that into consideration.
Without pads. And there were questions on him. And everyone said you could have got him in the 3rd round. And you look at the Patriots draft board, they drafted 2 cornerbacks, which, you need since you let J.C. Jackson go and Stephon Gilmore go.
This is all Patriots, 16 pages.
Yeah. You drafted 2 running backs, but you already have a plethora of running backs. And why are you drafting 2 more running backs when you have James White?
We don't know what James White after his hip. I'll cut in right there. His hip surgery is unprecedented. His hip surgery that he had is one of them surgeries that's an unknown for
Agreed.
when they come back.
But you still have Stevenson and Damian Harris.
Yeah.
Right? And if those two are going to get the brunt of the ball, you just got to go out and sign another type of Brandon Bolden type of player.
And I believe that's what they're looking at, that kid there that they've had over the past couple of years, the small back that they've had.
What was one of the glaring needs that they need right now? Linebacker. You have Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower both unsigned, which I'm okay with that because Hightower, I think, is past his prime.
Hightower's past his prime.
Right? But, yes, I understand they made the deal for the kid Mac from Mac Johnson? Is that his last name? The kid from the Browns?
Yep.
And then, you signed Juwan Bentley. But you have a glaring need. And you still need wide receivers. And you still need to give this kid an offense. And I agree, they drafted 3 offensive linemen. But, I mean, come on. It's
all
like...
right. So the one thing I'll say about Mac Jones, and if you just look at it, his arm strength, and I'll say this, it has not the 5-year comment, I believe, doesn't come from what he has on receivers. He's got great intangibles. The one thing that holds him back, his arm is not Foxborough, is not meant for Foxborough right now. He needs to build up arm strength. If you notice towards the end of the year, especially when he was in them windy style confines that Gillette Stadium is known for, especially one of the ends, it's a very hard stadium to throw in. We play in the wintertime. The kid, although, was raised in Jacksonville, Florida, probably never seen a snowball game in his whole life except for TV. And he played in Alabama. And if I'm not mistaken, Alabama's really not a wintry style of place.
No, it's a hot place.
Yeah. So
can I ask you a question, though?
Yep.
And since we're going to compare, since we've used a comparison, I remind anybody who's listening, Tom Brady didn't have the arm that he had.
I was just about to go there.
Yeah, Tom Brady didn't have that arm either. It took him years to develop that arm. And we really didn't see his arm until Randy Moss, which was 7 years later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. True that.
I mean, I remember back in the day, everyone comparing it because Drew Bledsoe had him and Dante Culpepper had the 2 biggest arms in the league. But everyone was questioning why, why this kid? He's got no arm. He developed into a pretty damn good arm. I would even say, but Brady's never had the most powerful arm. He's never been the Drew Brees or the Aaron Rodgers or the Peyton Manning, but that was never Brady's game.
No, but I will say this. Brady was dependable in cold weather, man. You could depend on that out pass getting there.
Granted, that's probably partly because he played in Michigan.
Yeah.
But where did Brady grow up? He grew up in warm weather,
California. Too. Yeah, I listen, man. I'm just telling you and the rest of our listeners what not only I've seen with my own 2 eyes, that I noticed towards them last few games. Although in Buffalo, that game they won 3-0, he threw in that wind, and it wasn't that bad at all.
Was it 3 times, right?
Yes, and they were fine passes.
Yeah.
So I think that the reason why we've seen a digression in the arm strength towards the end of the year, it's the most football that kid has played.
I was going to say, he's probably I mean, it's like
he hit the rookie wall, man. He hit the rookie wall. Yeah. And he definitely took a beating. Mac Jones took a beating.
He did.
He ain't never got hit like that. You don't get touched like that in Alabama.
No. He's lucky if he saw. Did they just score again? Yeah. Oh, boy.
Well, if you want, switch it over to Nesson Plus. The Red Sox are winning 2-0.
Thanks.
Garrett Whitlock is pitching a great game.
So I know I made a comment to start this off, and I think it definitely needs to be addressed is this going to be the end of the Bill Belichick era?
And I'm going to stop you right there because I'm going to give you some great facts on why this possibly could be the last year Bill Belichick. And this all has to do with a few simple things that have to do draft-wise. So some fun facts right here. This all goes back to 2019. So, number one, 8 of the 28 drafted up till now did not play at all. At all. And that's the draft from 2019 to 2021. This is all in these years. Now, another great fact. 2, just 2 of the 28 drafted players played more than 75%. Who do you think them 2 players were?
Since 2019?
Yep.
Damian Harris?
Nope.
Wow. More than 75%.
Yep.
Well, Mac Jones would have been only last year.
Mac Jones is 1, and it counts.
Oh.
So he played at 100%.
Oh. You got me stumped on the other one.
Michael Onwenu. The only 2 Patriots that have been drafted out of 28 players to play more than 75%.
Well, Isaiah Wynn, let's go through it, though. Isaiah Wynn was injured, although I'm not crazy about Isaiah Wynn.
Now, here's another great fact. Just 12 of 28 of the drafted players participated in more than half the games played since being drafted. So there's where the Onwenus and the Damian Harris, not the Onwenus, but the Damian Harrises of this world, they fit into the 12 section of just playing half their games since being drafted. Okay? Just 3 fun facts. Then I'll give you 5 NFL scouts and what they had to say about this year's NFL draft. The first one would be, as always, one of the most respected guys out in the draft for the NFL would be ESPN's Todd McShay. And in one word, Todd McShay, confusing. Okay? Yep. Mel Kiper Jr. of ESPN, probably the most respected guy, another hugely top respected guy in this business. It was his he put exact words were my lowest rated draft class, which means it was number 32.
Yep.
Okay. Peter King. We all know who Peter King is. Naive. that was a great one. Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald and of NBC Sports Boston writes, confounding. What a big word for the draft. Confounding. Does she not know that she is dealing with sports fans, not Harvard freaking graduates?
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
You know? Now, the last one, this Chris Trapso, I believe, is from Barstool Sports and works with Patriots.com. From the upside down. Just a few little nifty words.
You know, before we wrap it up, I just got to say that, you know, I was, as a fan, extremely disappointed.
Before you wrap it up, and then I'll give my quick 2 cents on the draft. You really covered a lot, but I'll just give you my on the few picks. So go on.
As a fan, I'm disappointed. But I have to ask myself 2 questions. One, is he going to prove us wrong? What, you know, he made the comment about the first round pick, that he was going to take him at 21, never mind 29. Whereas other people had this kid ranked lower on the board, way lower, although one analyst, and I forget what it was, said that that he would not have been there in the next 10 picks. Believe it. I think that I personally feel that's somebody who's on Belichick's,
It's fairly said.
He
was on the Felger and Maz big board.
Yeah.
Where they do the dot.
Yep.
Which is hilarious.
I'll say this much. I've that comment of "in Bill we trust." That really waned when we trusted him, that we trusted him with the biggest decision that he's been proven wrong on, which was Tom Brady's all done. We've trusted him to say, okay, Bill, rebuild. What have we gotten? We've gotten a quarterback, yes. But we've gotten a quarterback that's going to have Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, two people who are known to be nothing of offensive coordinators. And Joe Judge absolutely destroyed a quarterback in the New York Giants recently, right? We're going to have him as our offensive coordinator with poor drafting. And I just feel like two things. I feel like Belichick is, in many ways, and I'll bring up wrestling here very quickly, he thinks he's Vince McMahon. His way is the best way. Whether it works or it doesn't, it's his way. And I think the game is passing. I think the game has changed. He's not evolving.
Yep.
And I'm just going to put it out there. If this is his last year, there is but one coach in the NFL that I would want to see step through the doors at Gillette Stadium that I think could take Mac Jones and turn that kid into a bona fide Super Bowl stud. And his name is Sean Payton. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. So I'm in agreement. I believe that if Belichick doesn't do it this year, in all honesty, in order for Kraft to still become respected, the story that he upholds, where he was a guy that used to be in the lowly Foxborough Stadium during those 16 years.
1 and 15, 0 and 16.
Yep, 1 and 15, and he was a fan, and if he could ever take it over, what he would do. If that mentality does not come back to him, then Bill Belichick has some real big dirt on Robert Kraft. That's all I'm going to say. But you would think that a guy who is technically, as they all say, enamored with catching Don Shula, that this guy wouldn't be trying to draft and pillage free agents like they was going out of style in order to catch that. This dude is 70 years old, and I'm going to go on record. I believe he's lost his mind. Okay? I believe there's people who are saying he's basically doing the same thing he did in Cleveland, where he had nobody in charge. It was like one big thing. We're all one big happy family, and we'll come up with the recipe.
Unless your name's Steven Belichick.
Now, the one thing that I will say, Matt Patricia, do you know where he began his Patriots career? On what side of the ball?
Offensive side of the ball.
Yes, he
I
did.
But not as a coordinator.
No, but still, you don't have to be a coordinator. If you're a receivers coach, you're technically in the coordinating. Receivers coach, quarterback coach, and line coach all sit with the offensive coordinator to come up with the weekly game plan. So theoretically, at that high of a level, Patricia does have an idea. But do I look at Patricia as being Josh McDaniels like, or even being close to an offense? No, I don't. But the one thing I'm confident about is that he does have experience. He wasn't a quarterback killer in Detroit. Detroit is blessed with shit. And let's just face it. You know what I mean?
You're right. So
I think Patricia, and just hear me out, I think Patricia can get a decent handle, but I think Joe Judge and him are going to butt heads. And that is going to be a very hard obstacle to overpass.
Let me before we, because it's got to be said. There are two coordinators out there that could take this kid who is in his second. We're going into one of the most important years of a quarterback's development, his second year in the league. right? This kid is going to be an absolute sponge now that he's out of his rookie year. And you're going to tell me you don't go and make a move to bring back a guy like Bill O'Brien, or you don't bring in an Adam Gase, who is an offensive guru genius, maybe not a great head coach, but a phenomenal offensive coordinator. Look what Josh McDaniels and what he did when he came back. How does he not look at that and do it? And that's what tells me the game has passed.
So the first part, just to answer that quick question on the Bill O'Brien, and I only know this because a guy that works with me has went far in the athletic coaching part. Okay. He has friends that work for different colleges. And when he was hearing, he said, Bill O'Brien won't go. He goes, because until the year after, because Belichick is the type of guy that won't cross Saban in that way, shape, or form to disrupt the season. So that was one of the huge sticking points, that Belichick's respect for Saban was not to take Bill O'Brien this year.
Then why not bring in Adam Gase?
I think they were afraid of Adam Gase wrapping up a $1 bill and snorting lines on the fucking game plan. So I think the cocaine thing, but I'm sorry to say, I believe the cocaine thing is going to come back to bite him in the ass for a long time, man. And then again, do you want a guy that's coming, like he was legitimately fired, for doing cocaine? Him and his coaches, the staff, they was wired. And I think that maybe Belichick worried, what if this dude goes on a coke bender and it's the Super Bowl and I lose my offensive coordinator? Those are things that he probably thought about, man.
All right, so I'm going to pose a question to you that I want you to we can me and you will talk offline, but I want this to be our for next week's show, our New England Patriot take. Two things. Question number one. We talked about Tom Brady. We talked about him no longer being a Patriot. And the question will be, and we'll talk about it next week, how much influence potentially did Robert Kraft have in the trade of Tom Brady? And my second question is will Robert Kraft actually let Bill Belichick go if they do not win a playoff game this coming season? So I figured we could talk about that next week, but I think that'll be two good things, because I think a lot of people forget Robert Kraft, at the end of the day, he's the big man on campus. He has the biggest dick there. He has.
All right, so now question number one, how much influence did they have on the Brady trade? Meaning, what do you mean by the trade for Brady?
In letting Brady go. In letting Brady go. How much influence, I know a lot of us feel that it was Belichick. He didn't want him. Maybe it was more than just Belichick. Maybe it was Robert Kraft said, it's time for this kid to go. We don't know. We've only read a lot what the paper says, so I think we should talk about it next week. It's a good subject.
All right. So I'm just going to touch real quick on the draft, and then we'll move. And the only reason why I say this. So, pick number one, Cole Strange, offensive lineman out of Chattanooga. I'm not saying it's the right pick. I'm not saying it's the wrong pick. I'll just bring it back to what it was quoted on being. That, yes, he was a second to third round pick. But there's a guy that was very influential in protecting Tom Brady's backside for a very long time. Okay? And his name was Logan Mankins. Mankins was out of Fresno State, had a great career with the Patriots, played all positions on the offensive line. Now, Strange from Chattanooga was basically off the radar, went to the Senior Bowl, and he He basically, they say he flat out dominated. He's a fifth-year senior. We all know that Belichick loves them older guys.
Yep.
And let's just face it, Capelli, what's a huge characteristic of a lot of the linemen that you see the Patriots pick up? What's something that's always stuck out to you?
They move around. They're versatile.
Exactly. So now, I believe that Bill Belichick wasn't looking at it as being a legit, solid one-guy draft, number one pick. He was looking at as he was getting a Swiss Army knife. And one of the things that you'll always see about Bill Belichick, he loves to feel he's getting his worth out. So I just think this is one of these things that Bill felt he was getting his worth out of the, so to speak, Swiss Army knife of offensive linemen in that draft. Like we don't know really what he could become. If this kid's in week 1 and he's starting, we might have to rethink and pump the brakes that maybe he was on to something. But then again, I watched something and I wish I could have wrote this stuff down. But they did like a 5-year draft recap. And they took like the McShays, the Kuipers, and they looked at their big boards to see who the Patriots would pick. And these people that were on there was probably only 3 to 4 people that legitimately, out of all the Patriots picks through the rounds that they predicted for them, that actually stuck in the NFL. So these are those, so to speak, draft gurus that really couldn't get it right. From my understanding, the second-round draft choice is the fastest receiver. We talked about that, but it's a different game with the pads on. And from what I heard, he was the wrong guy. Now, the 2 quarterbacks I like. Okay, I heard. I like this. I like the guy Marcus Jones out of Houston.
Yep.
The cornerback Jack Jones out of Arizona State is my height.
Yeah.
5'6", dude.
I know.
But his vertical jump, and I watched his technique. I watched some of his film.
But he was
don't forget. Do you know who coached him?
He came from isn't that Deion Branch? No,
Herman Edwards. Herman Edwards.
Right. It was Herman Edwards.
What was Herman Edwards in the NFL?
I know.
Hall of Fame corner.
That kid also had, and hopefully, but he did have off-field issues.
Yes. Well. Yeah. Now, the South Dakota running back, I hear good things about him. Now, Bailey Zapp, the quarterback out of Michigan, so many people got such a rise thinking that, oh, my God, this guy's being drafted to take over. No, he isn't.
Backup. He's being drafted to
to be a backup. Yeah, but on the plus side, he passed for 6,000 yards and 62 touchdowns last year at Western Michigan. And Western Michigan does play top 25 talent, okay?
I know.
So, other than that, I really don't care on touching on anybody, but I believe the steal out of this draft, so to speak, could be picked number 245, round 7. Andrew Stuba, the offensive lineman out of Michigan.
Yeah.
Michigan offensive linemen notably have always been top guys.
Since we're talking NFL, before we move on, your opinion. Give me a team that you felt had a really good draft. Just what team do you think had a good draft?
Wow.
Let me give you mine first.
I have to say the Kansas City Chiefs had a good draft.
You're gonna kill me for this one. The New York Jets had one of the best drafts in the league.
I'd like that. Yes, the Jets did. They did.
They got 3 of the top prospects at their position, and then they got a top 4 edge rusher. The New York Jets, I hate them, but they had one of the top drafts this year. So just going to leave it at that.
I believe the Jets. I liked what Kansas City did too.
Yeah.
And then I like what Philadelphia did, picking up age,
Yeah. Philadelphia, man, they made a great move. The Ravens had a good draft too, but I think it was a mistake getting rid of Marquise Brown. Only time will tell. So, but
all right, man.
let's
So,
go. Let's go to the Let's go to the NBA. Let's go to the Celtics next because I need a little bit more time to digest what it is right now. I see on my TV. So let's go to the Celtics. I'll let you start it out.
After an impressive first round sweep, baby, of that piece of crap Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets, they come into a series basically, but they are not just basically facing the NBA World Champions from last year, quote unquote, what people say is the best player in the NBA, and one Giannis Antetokounmpo. Not only that, but they do have a talented team.
They do.
The question is, did the Celtics use too much ammunition in what realistically became did they use too much trying to,
did they blow their wad against?
Yeah, against, did that take everything out of them? Do they feel like they already won a championship by putting Kyrie and Durant in their place? That's what I guess. That's what I guess. The one thing I would have to ask.
I guess the way I look at it is look, the Celtics. Let's go back, do a quick history this year. The Celtics come November were being talked about as potentially one of the biggest disappointments in the NBA. You were dealing with transition in the front office. Danny Ainge is gone. You're taking the head coach. Brad Stevens now becomes the Danny Ainge of the team, and you got this guy coming in. God forgive me, I forget his name. The coach,
Ime Udoka.
And you got this team that was just floundering come mid-November. Fast forward 4 months, 5 months later, and you got arguably the best team in the NBA. I mean, just nonstop, and they definitely they figured it out. And I think part of it was, and I heard it on the radio. I can't take credit for this, but I heard it and I believe it, and I believe that a player like Marcus Smart, who was very much talked about near the trade deadline, accepted his role. He's not the star of the team. He's not one of the top 3 stars, but accepted his role as to what he brings to the team and what he can do. And I think, I've always felt that NBA players are divas at best, and it's definitely a league that is, it's run by the teams are run by the players most likely.
And basketball is, my friend. Yeah. I'm a high school basketball coach, and I'm going to tell you this.
Yep. Players run the team.
The players run my team. Because they see what's going on, and me as the coach, I just try to put them in the right positions to excel.
And I think my opinion is I think this team got it together. Now, going into the playoffs, I think it was great that they played Brooklyn, because I think a lot of people felt that the Celtics were going to flounder against Brooklyn because, arguably the greatest player on the planet. I don't know. I mean, Kevin Durant's a great player. I hate the guy, but I mean, look, he's still not LeBron James. No. And I hate LeBron. LeBron will never be Michael Jordan, but it's kind of hard to say LeBron James isn't probably the best player in the league. I mean, overall. That's a different topic for a different day. But now you put him with Kyrie, and then there's the whole Kyrie in Boston scenario. Kevin Durant, when he could have came to Boston but chose Golden State, blah, blah, blah. And then they go out and they beat him in 4 games straight.
Yeah.
Do I think they blew their wad? No. What I do think, though, is I think they tried to play the same game against Milwaukee in game 1, and Milwaukee just went like this.
Yeah.
Game 2, however, I thought they made the right adjustments. I mean, look what they did in the first quarter. Look, I mean, defense won that game.
Yes,
but I mean, Jaylen Brown being hot last night, that helped. But I think they got it together. Do I think that they're going to pull the series off? I do. I think that they will ultimately beat them, and I think it'll be a 7-game series. The last time they played Milwaukee, they beat them in a 7-game series. Sorry, not last time, time before that. But I think the Celtics have what it takes. I think they believe in, remember in 2008, they had that whole Ubuntu.
Yep.
That team bought into it, but they bought into it from day one. They had a Kevin Garnett to be the, as he said it, the motherfucking silverback of the team. That's what he said. But I think they're believing now, and I think everybody's accepting their roles. And I think the emergence of Grant and Robert Williams, both players, has really helped the development of this team.
So just a quick timeout real quick. Let's get to 2 of our viewers, and let's give them a shout-out. Mr. Adam Jack Pelly, Jason Tatum will be MVP of the league in a few years. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to say Jason Tatum MVP within 3 years.
Okay. I say the same thing. 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
And then the man, the myth, the legend, the producer of all of our shows that we do here, Mr. Mickey Biggs. Great show, guys. We're killing it. Excellent. I hope the killing it is in a good way. So, This is the book right now. Pelly will probably get mad at me. That we as a team, the baseball team, is reading. It's a motivational book called Row the Boat. And it's just about talking about how in order to build a good program, rowing the boat, everybody needs to row together so that everybody's able to move forth. One person that doesn't row that boat ain't going to make that boat go the direction it needs to go. So for any of you out there, this book is Row the Boat. It's written by Minnesota Golden Gophers head football coach, Mr. PJ Flack. It's a great little book to read. I'm sorry, Pelly, but I'll say this. I haven't read it myself. What's great is other people are reading it, and I get to listen and follow the words.
There you go. That's you, buddy. If it ain't
an e-book, if it ain't an e-voice book, it's always been hard for me as a person, no matter how interesting it is. I got to read whatever I read a few different times. It's the attention span. It's whatever the hell it may be, but at least I'll admit it. I can read. It's just reading isn't fun for me because of the frustration that I get out of it.
Yeah, I get it. So let me ask you, because I'm going to be honest. I am truly a fair weather fan to basketball. I do not watch basketball during the regular season.
I do. I've probably watched 72 games out of the 82.
So why don't you kind of take this from here? What's it going to take for the Celtics to win this series, and what would it take for this team to go all the way?
Okay, I'm gonna say one simple gesture, and I believe that these guys right now are rowing the boat, my friend.
Okay,
they're rowing the boat. They've all bought into what needs to be done. As long as they've all bought into it and they keep in the buy-in and they keep rowing the boat together, the Boston Celtics can be the NBA champions this year. No doubt in my mind. They were a game away in the bubble from facing LeBron James and them. This is a team that's sort of been there, that should be expected to be there with two of the best young studs in the NBA. And I'll come right out and say it. At the beginning of the year when this team was together, I was an advocate saying, I don't think Jaylen Brown can play with Jason Tatum. And I've always been an advocate that, yes, Marcus Smart at one time threw up the dumbest shots that you could realistically see. But his defense has always said to me that if I was the general manager and the spark he's got, he's the guy that's like Kevin McHale that'll give the hard foul, that will get the team going when they're not going. That's Marcus Smart, man. Marcus Smart was a 4 out of 5 tool player in the NBA. Now that he's rowing the boat and he knows what he is, he's a 5 tool player. Marcus Smart, mark my words, is the Green, the kid that plays for Golden State. What's his name? Green. Draymond Green.
Draymond Green.
Marcus Smart is the Draymond Green of the Boston Celtics. I've said it. I was a huge advocate for Brown and a couple others going to Minnesota, getting me Karl Anthony Towns and putting Karl Anthony Towns into that lineup. And I'm kind of glad that they didn't, because Brown has proven me wrong. Robert Williams, the Time Lord, if not injured at the most unopportune time when legitimately he was coming up to be a number 2 consideration for Defensive Player of the Year with Marcus Smart. When's the last time the Celtics can claim that they had 2 players that were up for the Defensive Player of the Year award? I don't think in my lifetime I've ever heard of that, and I've been an avid Celtics fan since the day I was born.
This is not good, by the way. Taylor Hall is getting helped off. No, is that Taylor Hall? Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 sec.
That's how So just to let you fans out there who are listening to us, we watch sports while we're talking sports, and tonight's a big night in Boston. We have the Bruins game 2 against Carolina, and we got the Red Sox up against the Angels, the California Angels, or the Los Angeles Angels, or the Anaheim Angels, whatever Angels you want to call them, but we know they go to the outfield. Anyways, I'm a huge Celtics fan. My son loves NBA basketball. So yes.
I gotta ask then, what is the difference between Al Horford original and Al Horford 2.0? Because it seems like he's a different.
You want to know? Truly want to know what it is?
Yeah.
He isn't playing center. He's playing power forward, which is, if you know, when he first signed with the Celtics, he stated, I would rather not be a 5. I would rather be a 4.
Okay.
Robert Williams comes out. The starting lineup is Williams at 5, Horford's at the 4, Tatum's at the 3, and your 1 or 2s are Brown and Marcus Smart. And that's the biggest thing. Horford said he never minded playing the 5, but didn't want to take chunk minutes there because he's an older player, and he felt that was more wear and tear on his body. And if you remember, they called him Average Al for a while.
Yeah.
Average Al ain't so average on his second go around here in Boston. He's giving you what you expected you were going to get years back.
Yeah. But definitively there's a difference, because when we got Al Horford, I felt a few years ago, they thought he was the piece that was going to put it all together for he was the missing piece, and it didn't wind up being that. And then it feels like now he's come in and he's more of that piece that they need for that championship run.
Between you and me, I believe that they were I think that Al was the piece that they believe could have got a guy like a Anthony Davis here, with Gordon Hayward, with, you know what I mean, and and a young Tatum and a young Brown, you know what I mean. I believe that's what they was hoping was going to happen. That Average Al was going to be able to take one of these young stars and say, come here, we got a really good nucleus. And maybe even a Durant, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then a Durant would have brought somebody in, and Average Al would have been playing the 4 and not the 5. So to get on, I believe this series is going to go 7. And I will take a gamble on letting Giannis drive, foul him, let him go to the line and score 30, okay? And take the gamble that they need other people to step up to beat us in 5 more games. I that's just, without Middleton,
Yeah.
it's a gamble. Let Giannis dictate. Let him drive. Who cares? Hack him. Make him go to the line. Make him hit his free throws. He's not a shooter. He's a driver.
Okay.
So I think it's a 7-game series. That's my honest opinion. I will be very surprised if they can take it in 6. I would love to see it go in 6. So this way they get a little bit of a rest. Because I think the Sixers without Embiid is.
Do you think the Sixers are getting past the Heat?
Do I think if Joel Embiid was 100%, yes.
Okay.
I think Jimmy Butler and the rest of those guys. I think Butler's a choke artist.
I agree.
I believe he's a choke artist, but that's realistically my Celtics take. Out of 82 games, Capelli, yeah, I'd probably watch 70 of them.
All right.
I've always been a huge Celtics, and the thing is it's not that I'm a fair weather Bruins fan. I'm a generational Bruins fan. I both grew up.
I think it's safe to say is we're both kind of when it comes to the NFL. I think you and I expect with the New England Patriots, we're equal. I think when it comes to the as fandom, I think when it comes to the Celtics, you got the edge on me. I think when it comes to the Bruins, I'll probably have the edge on you.
I'm not saying you don't. Like with this generation of Bruins, like the past 10 years, you definitely got me. After the Tim Thomas era, I'll be honest with you, I really fell off of not watching, but like when the Bruins were on this year, I tune in. Like I know my Bruins stuff. I thought it was great at the trade deadline with what they did, getting a top-tier defenseman to pair along. I understand that they had once they started from the trade deadline on, I've been an avid watcher. I've actually pushed the Bruins on to some of my students that are like, I don't like hockey. I can't follow it. I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand playoff drive hockey and then getting into the playoffs. So yes, to a certain extent, I am a fair weather fan. But brother, in the 80s, you and I could go toe to toe, fist to fist. I was a Craig Janney lover. I was a Neely lover. I worked at Chiazzo's Playoff Pub when that restaurant / bar was on Pearl Street in Adams. I was a dishwasher there. I met them all. Lyndon Byers. I never forget the day Lyndon Byers came into Converse, the outlet, and I'm there with Axel Rotten. He loved Converse clothing, so I picked Axel Rotten up. I brought him to the Converse store, and Lyndon Byers comes in, and this is when he got waived by the Bruins. He was realistically a nobody, okay? And he looked at the lady with all the clothes, and he looked at her and goes, "Don't you know who I am?" And she goes, "I don't give a crap who you are. Unless you got the money to buy this stuff, I don't care." He's like, "But I'm Lyndon Byers." So Axel Rotten goes, "I know who Lyndon Byers is. All he could do is fight. Why didn't he pull her over that counter and just fisticuffed her?" So, here's a wrestler from the Midwest.
I know.
That he knew. That was my generation. I loved Pete Peters. I loved Andy Moog. And I think the physicality, Capelli, is one of the things that realistically took the every night passion of watching the Bruins away. Come on! This halak is halaking all over him, or whatever his name is.
It's Umak.
Halak, Palak.
Since we're talking it, let's get into NHL. and I'm gonna be honest with you here. I'm a diehard fan.
I know you are.
I'm
You're a season
a
ticket holder.
realist fan, and I'm gonna say it how it is. If this is what I'm gonna get on my TV, you're gonna be lucky the Bruins don't get swept in 4 fucking games. The Bruins don't have, and they just don't have. They just they're getting beaten by a team that technically is less talented, in my opinion.
48, whoever he is.
That's Boston's own Matt Grzelcyk. That's the guy that they said Torrey Krug wasn't as we didn't want to invest in Torrey Krug, the defenseman, because they wanted to invest in Matt Grzelcyk.
48 let that puck totally go by him.
Yeah, because he sucks.
Left the goalie out hanging to dry.
He sucks. He's
then the one guy before that missed the check in front of the wide open net.
Yeah,
they stood there with their thumbs up their ass.
Are playing themselves out of the series. And what's sad is I have a bet with a friend of mine who's a Carolina guy, and I'm going to wind up having to buy this kid a steak dinner because right now Carolina's beating the Bruins 4-1, game 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs,
first round.
And I'm going to tell you, it is next to impossible to come back. It's doable, but you're not going to come back from a 2-game deficit.
Didn't they do this a few years back against the Toronto Maple Leafs?
There wasn't a 2-game deficit though. They didn't lose the first game.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm just asking. I thought it was a 2. I thought they were down 2 games to nothing.
No. And I think the Bruins record going down 0-2. I think they've only come back once or twice. That's it. It's very difficult to come back from a 2-game deficit because now you have to go back to Boston. You have to win both games just to tie a series up, and you're getting outplayed. And no offense, I'm going to tell you the biggest problem with the Bruins right now. 2 things. 1, defense. You got to go.
Hold on.
Well, while you're going, I'm going to talk. So the biggest problem that we have with the Bruins right now, and I'll tell Jason when he comes back. Jason's coming back now. Is I was just talking to our listeners. Our 2 biggest problems, the 2 glaringest problems right now, is they don't have the people to move the bodies in front of the net, so they don't have that defensive core. The reason why I sat at Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals in 2019 and watched them lose is because St. Louis Blues were able to beat us up physically because they had big defensemen. Bruins don't have it. And the defensemen that they do have, you're relying you got Brandon Carlo, who's afraid to hit. You have Matt Grzelcyk, who is not Torrey Krug, was a mistake. You just lost Paul Lindholm, but Paul Lindholm we just acquired, but he's not a big hitter. He's more of a finesse type of player, and that's really it. And all you really have is Charlie McAvoy, because Connor Clifton, great player and all, but he's a third line defenseman. He's a bottom tier defenseman. Second problem that they have. And Don Sweeney is the fucking blame for this. And people can disagree with me, but you're the general manager. You knew Tuukka Rask contract was coming up. You knew you weren't going to re-sign him. They knew they weren't re-signing him at the time.
Yep.
And you go and sign a kid for $5.5 million that's never seen the playoffs once. This is the first time Linus Ullmark has ever seen the playoffs. Now, the kid in Linus Ullmark, he came from Buffalo. It wasn't like he came from as a backup from a winning organization. This kid came from Buffalo, who was the worst team in the fucking league. And I just, you have a young kid in Swayman. I understand you had to get this kid, but at $5.5 million, like you could have maybe gave him a little bit less with the same year deal and use that money to sign other players. And I'm going to tell you right now, as a Bruins fan, if Don Sweeney is not asked to return as the GM, I don't think I'd be upset. If he comes back, great. I'm okay with it. But if they don't bring him back, I'm okay with that too. Because the problem is you've got Patrice Bergeron, who is going to be a free agent, potentially going to retire this year. It is possible. I mean, there are rumblings that he's retiring. If so, he's been very quiet about it, which God bless him. The guy is probably the top, and people are going to say I'm wrong, but Patrice Bergeron's a top 5 player in the league. It has nothing to do with
all-around player, without a doubt. I'll give you that.
Yes, right? And then you got Brad Marchand, who's starting to age. Your window is starting to close with those guys, and when you lose those two, it's going to be a big loss. And I just don't see, I love Cassidy. I wouldn't trade Cassidy. I think he shows he can win, but you got to win it all, and you got to learn to adjust. And right now, you got the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't care how good they are. The Carolina Hurricanes are slapping the shit out of you. Game 2. It's terrible. It's fucking terrible.
It is. So, all right, let's fast forward. The season's over. Sweeney doesn't return. Marchand retires.
No, Marchand won't retire.
Not Marchand.
Bergeron.
Bergeron retires. What do the Bruins do, Capelli?
Well, first things first, I can tell you right now, Marchand would be named captain.
So this is the best thing that Tristan Cropsey has said. Losing to a third-string goalie, too.
Tristan's right. He's right. They're losing to a third-string goalie because they can't even get shots, and they're playing like shit. They're losing 4-1. But what do? If I fast forward, so number one, it'll be an interesting decision because most GMs want to bring in their own coach. Now, how do you justify getting rid of a Bruce Cassidy who's had winning seasons every year that he's been here? Every year he's here, the Bruins have finished either first. I mean, they've made the playoffs. The only year they didn't make the playoffs was the year that he took over for fucking Claude Julien. And they almost made the playoffs because of him.
So
Tuca got the poo-poos at the last game.
I may not be the biggest Bruin follower.
Yep.
But I'm just going to bring you back to one thing that stands out in my mind that, Don Sweeney is noted for. And that's that horrible draft where they got the three very high draft choices.
Terrible.
And
straight number 1 picks. And the only one in the NHL is Jake DeBrusk. And DeBrusk is not granted. Ever since he said I wanted to get traded and got put on the first line because they had to make a move to get that second line going, which was the right move. But at the end of the day, Jake DeBrusk is not – it was a terrible draft. It was terrible.
So
terrible draft. With
that being said, why would you want Don Sweeney back? Don't you think that this is the easiest thing on why you just don't redeem him, you don't re-sign him, is because theoretically, hear me out.
It's not just Sweeney. You can't blame just Don Sweeney.
I understand that, but just hear me out. Just hear me out.
Yep.
You got a aging Brad Marchand.
Yep.
You got Krejci, who left last year that you've never replaced.
Yep.
You got Bergeron that's ready to probably hang him up. What does this team realistically have other than a goalie prospect in Swayman, a number 1 defenseman in Charlie McAvoy, and Brad Marchand? Don't give me the shit on Taylor on Hall, because Hall is I'm just going to say it right now, overrated. He's
totally
never
disagree with you. Disagree with you. Taylor Hall, and I'm going to tell you what they have. They have arguably one of the top. They have one of the top 5 scorers in the league, in David Pastrnak.
Yeah, I forgot all about Pasta, but he's in.
Taylor Hall is becoming the player that he was meant to be and the player that the Bruins wish they had actually drafted. But Taylor Hall,
How many goals did he have this year?
61 points in his first year with the Bruins.
Okay.
And mind you, the first 2 months, they did nothing.
All right.
Taylor Hall.
So I'll give him a mulligan on this year. Let's see what he does next year.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I think Taylor Hall they discovered it. He's not meant to be the Connor McDavid of a team. And that's what he was. Every team he was on prior to the Bruins, he was meant to be the Connor McDavid.
I wrestled in a few of in his hometown arena that he played minor league hockey in, and they looked at Taylor Hall being like a Wayne Gretzky style of player, buddy.
The problem is listen, there's only ever going to be one Bobby Orr, one Wayne Gretzky, one Sidney Crosby, one Connor McDavid. This kid, though, he's showing to me. I fell in love with Hall this year. I thought the Taylor Hall trade and sign was one of Sweeney's best moves yet, because I think he recognized in the kid. The kid was getting a bad rap in some of the teams that he was on, but in the same token, I think other players. I think if I was a professional athlete and I just came from the Arizona Coyotes, Coyotes or whatever the hell they're called, being the worst team in the league and playing in what is the drizzling shits.
Yeah.
It's like, and now he comes into an atmosphere where he can just blend in and say, you know what, I can just go out and play.
He did have a good year in New Jersey.
He had a good year in New Jersey, but New Jersey is also the drizzling shits.
Yep.
So I think Hall, to answer your question,
what do they do, Capelli? I'm asking you. Do you think? Hold on, up to Tupac.
Go ahead.
But do you believe that draft, along with some other questionable draft choices, that he has the same characteristic as Bill Belichick?
No, I disagree.
The cupboard's a bear.
I disagree, because in hockey, it's much more worldwide scouting based and listening to scouts.
So you're telling me just because they shit the bed in the first round picks that it realistically means nothing?
Here's the thing. Right now, there's a kid playing in Vancouver named with the last name Lysel. The kid is arguably potentially the next Leon Draisaitl of the NHL. This kid is phenomenal. He just put up, I think, 15 points in the first round that they won and made a massive upset. I believe he plays in the QHL. It's one of the minor league teams, and he put up I think it was 15 points. I want to say it was 4 goals and 11 assists in 6 games. Oh, wow. This kid Lysel is the real deal. McAvoy, draft pick, real deal. They've hit on some, that were under, Don Sweeney. Others they didn't hit on, but,
how do you go out next year realistically replace? Is this Hull guy? Does he replace Krejci? Does he replace Krejci in your mind? Yeah, whatever. The kid Eric Haller, when he played for 4 years ago, when he had his best season when he played for the Golden Knights. He has 50-point potential. He can put up maybe 50 points. I think a full season with Pasta and Hall. Yes, I think he can do it. I don't know if he's a true number 2, but here's the thing: if Bergeron retires, they're going to have to find a true number 1 center. And where do you get that? Who's a free agent this year?
You know what? That's good homework for me for next year, for next week's pod show, to discuss what I think would be potential good pickups for the Bruins.
Okay.
I think that I don't know if there's a GM available that would. I don't know if there's a GM right now that's available or someone who I would trust. The one guy that I think that they could have trusted, the Bruins Stanley Cup team had depth that very underrated good. Yes, I agree. The Merlot line was amazing that year, but that team had a lot of leadership. Um, that team was also built differently. That was a defensively minded team.
Yep,
And you had a legitimate number one goalie playing out of his absolute mind in Tim Thomas because he had a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. Because people forget, Tim Thomas that year was not the number one goalie going into the year. It was Tuukka. Tuukka lost the number one job that year
that's right.
to Tim. But to go back to it, I think the Bruins. Do I think Bergeron retires? No. I think Bergeron will come back. I think he'll sign a 1-year deal and come back for one more year.
Who's the goalie next year?
And it's going to be the same thing you see this year. It'll be the two goalies. It'll be Umak and Swayman next year again.
Swayman needs to work on his puck handling.
I agree.
I am so like, this is another thing. You'd be like, wow, for a guy that says he doesn't watch much Bruins.
Right.
Yeah. I get nervous when I see that dude handle the puck.
I'm going to tell you right now, and people, and I will not take credit for this, but other people have said this to me, and I see it. Swayman handles the puck great coming from the right side. It's his left side peripheral vision and his left side play of the puck. So it's going to be his glove side. I think that's where he gives up more rebounds on that side, and he doesn't like his puck trajectory and projection. He needs to work on that. But you know what? It's another year.
Yeah.
I think the Bruins' biggest glaring need is going to be finding a true defenseman that can bang, hit, be nasty. The Bruins need to get their identity next year, and they need to be able to put someone on the ice so that if somebody gets out of line, the dude gets on the ice and people will think twice.
All right, so I got one more final Bruins question for you.
Okay.
Charlie McAvoy, how do you view him as? Could he be Ray Bourque-esque? And I'm not saying Ray Bourque, but could he have some of the same contributions that Ray Bourque did to this Bruins franchise?
Yes. I think McAvoy is a top 5 defenseman in the league. Not as a Bruins fan, but as as a hockey fan. When you watch him, he's not putting up the same kind of points that some of the other defensemen is, but it's not just about the points. McAvoy is probably one of the best, what I would call two-way defensemen. He is an offensive and defensive defenseman. He hits, he's nasty, he's tough, he shoots, he can carry the puck. He really is one of the best defensemen in the league. He'll never put up the 60, 70, 80 points that Ray Bourque did. But,
do you think because the style in the NHL is different nowadays, also that you don't see defensive men do that?
No, because there are teams out there that who was it? I forget what team it was. There's a team out there that had a 60 goal, a 70 point defenseman. But it's the style of play that we play here in Boston.
Yep.
But he's on the number one power play. He's a penalty killer. I think McAvoy, I think he's one of the futures. He's the next foundational piece to the Boston Bruins.
So
he is the next Patrice Bergeron, the next Brad Marchand to come through.
They say, like, I just, I listened to some critics, and some critics say that he'll really never, even though he'll be like noted as a top defenseman in the league, he'll never win a Norris because he doesn't put enough biscuits in the basket.
And you know what? That's because the Norris Trophy is not the way it's meant to be. It's not meant to be who puts up the most points. It's supposed to be who the best defenseman is. And that doesn't necessarily mean because you scored, 20 goals and 40 assists and you led the league in points.
I agree.
Same as the Hart Trophy. The Hart Trophy should go to the most valuable player in the league, and you usually don't.
No, I agree. If you're the best defenseman, you should be noted upon your statistics when you're on the ice, are they scoring against you? How long is the average while you're on the defensive zone? Does the puck actually stay in your zone compared to the other zone? Like I think that if you're gonna do the Norris Trophy, the analytics of the
Yep.
defensive game should be used more.
All right. Well, I'm gonna end our NHL Boston Bruins talk with a very disgusting thing to say. But this very well could be the year the Toronto Maple Leafs put it together. And I'm going to leave it at that because I'm going to throw up after. I can't believe I just said it, but I got to be honest and be real. This could be the year of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're that good.
As much as I hate the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm hoping that and I do not like the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'd like to see the Lightning three-peat.
No, I'm done with that.
And I'll leave it at that.
All right, let's go to that minor league team that plays at.
You can call them a minor league team, but they had a very bad first 2 months of the season last year. Okay, and I believe they actually have a better record at this time of the year than they did last year.
So I got to ask. I mean, the team's talented, right? I mean, look at the talent on this team.
Spring training.
They're not hitting.
Spring training. I'm telling you. Hitting. Spring training with it being 3 weeks. Not only that, I believe a lot of these guys sat on their asses and basically were not working themselves hard enough, expecting that a deal was actually going to be done. That's my opinion. Yeah. I think it's harder. It's harder to get it together as a hitter than it is a pitcher, especially with the way that the pitcher has the pitching staff's had an advantage this year. They were able to carry 4 more pitchers because spring training was so short.
Right.
So theoretically, what you could utilize out of the bullpens to keep the hitters at bay, I feel. You see that. The Red Sox have come alive over the past few games. Like, they lost 2 games last week that were 1-0 games. Do people realize that? Like,
I know that.
You don't lose those things.
But you're not hitting the ball.
Exactly. The hitting hasn't come alive.
And they got a new hitting coach.
Last night and tonight, the bats have looked pretty good for the Red Sox.
What's
the bats that are supposed to be heating up are heating up. I believe right now they don't have the scoreboard up. You got Eckersley, O'Brien, and Euclid talking. Which talk about like that too. So you got a tie ball game 3-3 right now in the 7th. Which the Angels got a good lineup too, man. Ohtani and without a doubt, probably what is, so to speak, supposed to be the best baseball player in the game is Mike Trout. You know, I believe right now, and this is my opinion. I said to people last year the Red Sox would come alive after the trade deadline. And what did the Red Sox do last year? They came alive after the trade deadline without making any big trade asset moves. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They did. They made the playoffs. They did what they had to do. If they pull this game out tonight, I believe they'll be 11-14. That's 3 games under 500. That's not a bad little record to start off with. The thing that kills them is they're in the best division in all of baseball. Where they're in the best division in baseball.
With who? I know Toronto's hot, but with who?
The Yankees
hot right now?
Oh yeah, Yankees got the best. Yankees got the best record in baseball.
Oh, do they? I'm not following it. So
Yankees got the best record, and that's not for nothing. Tampa Bay's right behind every year.
Yeah, that's true.
You have the 4 best teams in the American League playing in the same division. So hands down. So give me 4 better teams. The Angels ain't better. The Athletics ain't better. The Texas Rangers ain't better. Houston got worse by losing Carlos Correa to Minnesota. And then I'll go to the Central. Minnesota ain't. You can't put Minnesota, Chicago, and Detroit and say that that's the 3 better. You know what I mean? The Red Sox play in the best division in the American League, where 4 playoff teams could legitimately come this year out of the AL East. Okay?
Well,
I believe, and this is my thing, baseball has changed. You don't got 5 starting pitchers no more. If the Red Sox are able to keep their bullpen going, and now adding Chris Sale and Paxton into the mix in the next 2 to 4 weeks, I really don't need Chris Sale anymore to pitch 7 innings. If Chris Sale can go twice through the lineup and then hand it over to some of these new hybrid pitchers that are coming through the league, the hybrid class, I believe the Sox will be there right at the end, my friend. And you know another reason why I believe the Sox will be there right at the end?
Why?
Is because out of their top 30 prospects, their top 4 of the top 80, 4 of the top 85 in all of Major League Baseball. And I'll just shout that with you. Last year's number 1 pick, who's not projected to be a Boston Red Sox until 2024, Mr. Marcelo Maya, is Major League's 14th rated prospect. Tristan Cassis, who they're projected will be up this year, is the Major League's number 16th prospect. Nick York, a second baseman, projected to be coming up next year. This is one of the reasons that they're saying that if Bogaerts doesn't resign, this guy's coming up to play.
I was going to ask you that question.
We'll get to the Bogaerts in a minute now, and I'll get that. And number 4 would be Jared Duran, ranked number 85, who they say could possibly be up by the end of the week. They're to round it out, their 5th prospect is Brian Bello, the first pitcher I've realistically heard in the Red Sox farm organization in a long time to say that this kid is going to be a name to know in the future. Right-handed pitcher, Brian Bello, projected to come up in 2022. But those are the top 5 prospects.
Yeah, but
in the Red Sox farm organization.
But I think, all right, so let me ask you a question.
So what I mean by just letting these 5 names out, this is just trade bait. You know what I mean? What if they take 1 or 2 of these guys and pair them up and realistically get us that number 1, a legit number 1 ace? You know? What if they get a legit? I'll be honest with you, I'm really not good with the
Do they need a number 1 ace, though?
I believe they do, yes. I believe they do.
Nathan Eovaldi's not that guy?
Nathan Eovaldi's a 2 or a 3 anywhere else. The Red Sox.
Would you be willing to pay for a number 1 ace, though? Because that's what it's gonna be huge money. And I hate to say it, but the ownership of that team drives me nuts. The ownership of that team has stated flat out that they're not gonna go over the luxury tax, that they're gonna do it. They're trying to play Billy Bean ball in a way. But yet they are the highest ticket in Major League sports, not just baseball, but of all sports. They are the highest ticket. So you're going to tell me that you're going to charge us as fans for you to take your kids and wife to a game. It's no less than $400 for the game. You're telling me that you're going to give me a product. You're not going to go out and get the very best players and say, screw the luxury tax? Because, sorry, John Henry wants to own the Pittsburgh Penguins and Manchester United or Liverpool, and he wants to own all these other things. I mean, no offense, but the Red Sox should be his number 1 priority. And I don't want to hear that they don't want to pay Xander Bogaerts. I've read the story that they made him an offer that was an insult. The kid's probably the top 2. Would you agree that Xander Bogaerts, I would say top 3 shortstop in the fucking league?
I would say that Xander Bogaerts is probably the greatest shortstop in Red Sox history, arguably.
Better than Omar?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's
You know why he's better than Nomar? Because what happened when they got rid of Nomar?
He fell apart.
What?
He fell apart.
Not only that,
they won the World Series.
They won the World Series. There you go. You know why? Because he's not a pet. He didn't want to row the boat.
Yeah, but here's a question: is Xander now not wanting to row the boat because they're not going to pay him?
He just hit a just hit it. He just hit a 2-run homer and cleared cleared everything. No, what I think is going to happen, and this is my honest words. You know who his idol is, correct?
Who? Xander's?
Yes.
Who? Don't say Robinson Cano.
No. Why does he wear the number 2?
Oh, Jerry Remy. No. Oh, Jeter.
Yes.
Yeah, he'll wind up a New York Yankee.
He just hit a solo home run to put the Sox in front 4-3. Yes, I honestly believe if the Red Sox do not sign him, you will see Xander Bogaerts in Yankees pinstripes next year. And I believe Derek Jeter will let him wear the number 2.
No. Listen, nobody in New York will let anybody wear the number 2 again.
Well,
okay, but I hear what you're saying. So but that's the thing. Then you got Rafael Devers.
I think that's who they're gonna. My opinion, I believe that's who they want to give the money to, and I believe the reason why.
Both. You have a foundation. Give them to them both. That's what I don't understand. This team is not dedicated to winning because they won't. You have 2 studs. Give it to them.
Listen. You hit the nail on the head with Bogaerts. Bogaerts is approaching what? He's going to be 30 years old?
Not even, I don't think. I think
he's 28?
Yeah.
All right. So I think if anything, if I was the Red Sox, I'd be offering a 4-5-year deal at most. And if I was Bogaerts, I would like that. You know why? Because at 32, 33 years old, you can go after another.
You can go after one more big contract.
Big contract, yes. And I'll say this. I've always said to people that Xander Bogaerts is our version of Derek Jeter. He's class act. He does everything right. Will I be mad if Xander Bogaerts does not re-sign with the Reds? You bet your ass I'll be pissed.
You know why I'd be pissed?
Will I pull a James Forbes and start writing? I'm gonna slit my throat style things. Yeah, I just if they would go, all right, put it this way. If they were to go out and lose Bogaerts, but then turn around and sign like a top 1, 2, or 3, like legit 1, 2, or 3 best at their position, like, would you swap Aaron Judge for Xander Bogaerts?
No, I wouldn't. I would not for Xander Bogaerts. No, I'd keep Xander.
Okay. So if Xander signs with the Yankees. And Judge signs here. You don't think that's it? That's an even off swap?
No, because I look at the position, and shortstop is one of the most important positions on a team. And I'm sorry, but you got the best one of the best shortstops in the fucking league.
I really do. I'll be honest with you. Hitting wise, yes.
Power hitter. I want a hitter.
Hitting wise, Xander Bogaerts is probably the top 1 to 2 shortstops in the league, but his glove and arm accuracy is a tad above average. And I would say this: Mike Judge and Fenway Park. I'd take me seeing 5 years of that and putting him in a lineup with like a JD Martinez and a Rafael Devers and whatever else you could get. I would love to see. Listen, I love me Xander Bogaerts. I will be sad to see him go. But if you can, if it will erase my memory if you get me a top pitcher in Major League Baseball, like I'm talking a top 5, and you got me a power hitting outfield that could just pepper the Green Monster. I'll forget very quickly about Xander Bogaerts because you know why? I just pushed 1 year up of the Marcelo Maya project, and I bring him up in 2023, and I give him a chance to make the team right out of spring training.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or you put Story where he's meant to be. You got a guy that's the 25th, that's the 55th overall prospect in Major League Baseball in Nick York, who could let him come up and try competing for the second base job. Whoever can win it, that's where Story goes. If Marcelo Maya can come in and hit the cover off in spring training in 23, Maya goes to short. You let him come up a year early. If Nick York is the guy who shines in spring training, Nick York comes up, plays second base, Story goes back to shortstop. But yes, I do, Capelli. I would love to see them sign Devers and Bogaerts. But I got this weird feeling that management's going to come up with some cockamamie excuse, and it was going to be that. Yeah, it's gonna and they're gonna say, well, Devers was the legit signing because he can play third, he can play first, and he signed an 8-year deal. So the first 4 years he's a full-time in the field player. The next 4 years he's able to reserve himself as the DH, and he's the next Dominican version of Big Papi. Like,
I don't want to hear. You know what? I don't want to hear it because this team had probably one of the best 5-2 players I have ever seen since Carlos Beltran. His name was Mookie Betts. They didn't want to pay the motherfucker, and he left.
I'll be honest. I don't. I'm gonna say it. I don't blame them not paying Mookie.
Yeah, well, still, you could have signed him for less than what he got for the Dodgers. Could have got him for less, but they fucking lowballed him then. So, and now you're gonna do it again with a Xander Bogaerts, and that's, you know what? That's where I end my Red Sox talk.
Well, I think the Sox are going to be right up near the top. It'll be very interesting for the hot stove. When push comes to shove, I believe a lot of the stories out there that I believe John Henry's keeping this way, number one, because I believe he spent a lot of his billions. Number two, he's a huge proponent. He is a huge excuse person when it comes to the 2 years of losing in COVID.
Yeah, well,
you know,
I got nothing more to say about the Red Sox ownership
and
the players.
I honestly believe. I think you can see the Red Sox being sold in the next 3 to 5 years.
It's possible,
and that to me could be a huge proponent on why they are not spending at this time. And I believe, and this is another thing.
I hear what you're saying, but I think it won't happen.
I think John Henry, at the same point in time, looks at a signing like the Chris Sale signing he did, and everybody they signed to these huge long-term deals ends up breaking down on them.
Yep, I know.
That's all.
Well, tell you
I'm not going to say that the Red Sox can't afford to have the best.
Oh,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I think John Henry, the owner, is scared to give out the long-term deal to the close to 30-something or the 30-somethings. And something that and one of the hugest proponents of that is the Chris Sale signing.
No. Tell you what.
If you had to do over before we end it, would you have given Chris Sale the contract he got?
Tell you what. That's a great question for next week.
All right, so
that's a good question.
I'll leave you. I'll leave this podcast world hanging.
That's it.
And that will be.
I want more.
And if anybody's listening out there, tune in. Let's hear your answer to. Was it if you was the Red Sox GM, would you have signed Chris Sale to that lucrative long-term deal?
Hey, I want to put it out there since before we wrap this up, to anybody listening, especially if you get it from Spotify or YouTube, or if you're watching live on Facebook, you happen to watch us after, write me and Jay, send us a message. Write us if you have questions, you have a topic you want us to talk about, sports related, especially New England sports related, but we will talk any sport related. But if you have other questions, if you have a sport you want us to kind of mention, write to us. Let us know. Rumble the Gazoo. We will get you the answers, or we will tell you the stuff that you want to hear.
Next week, we'll have an official email address where they can send it, and I will put that email address up on the scrolling thing that goes by us all the time.
And
But
Jay,
for those,
you want to mention how they can see us after this, how it goes on to the different other platforms?
well, as always, we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Right now, streaming live through the Gorilla Position Network, which is it's the network. There's a Gorilla Position in every form of the entertainment world.
Yep.
And on Twitch and on YouTube, it's the Gorilla Position Network. You can find some of our older content that pertains to the world of professional wrestling. This is just something new that we've indulged into, that we've been wanting to do for a long time, is bring you the fans' perspective, and some would call us armchair GMs. I'll wear that hat very proudly.
The armchair, baby.
The armchair band right here. And on Twitch, be on the lookout. There will be a name change on Twitch. It'll go to Talking from the Cheap Seats Sports and Wrestling Podcast. You'll be able to look for that brand new name on Twitch and Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play will be 3 of the new avenues we'll be at. That should be all uploaded within the next 2 to 3 days. Just look under Talking from the Cheap Seats, starring Rumble and the Gazoo.
That's right.
So with that being said, I think we've had a great first episode. And I don't know, Gazoo. Any parting words?
I think we'll wrap it up with this right here. No matter where you're from, what you watch, just understand something right there, people. We are still Title Town, and we always will be.
And for those of you people that are out there and you love motivational books, and you'll hear me talk about rowing the boat, Capelli and I this week, I believe we rowed the boat together. We did a great job getting through these rough seas. And the author is PJ Flack, the head football coach at the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. So, with that being said, I'm the bad boy from Boston, Jason Rumble.
I am the one, the only, the true mind of it all. I am the Gazoo.
And we'll see you next week on Talking from the Cheap Seats.